Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you my 2025 setup. The bullet journal that I'll be using for this setup is from the Lucky Bag from 2024, so the Lucky Tale notebook. Since the Lucky Tale from 2024 Lucky Bag was more or less fairy tale themed, I wanted to keep that theme for the 2025 setup, and so I did a kind of fairy tale-esque foresty theme throughout my spreads. Starting off with the cover page for 2025, I'm using Himi gouache, and I'm just basically blocking off colors pretty roughly where I want everything to be. So the background, doing some swatches of colors, roughly doing the tree trunk, water, mushrooms, etc. It has been a little while since I've painted. I've been more so crocheting these days, and so I didn't want to give myself too much pressure going into this cover page. I didn't want to try and let that perfectionism slip in, and so even though I know that this painting is looking a little rough, I still was trying to be calm about it and enjoy the process anyways. The theme that I'm going for this cover page is basically an enchanted forest that you would see in a typical fairy tale of sorts, and so there's a lot of glowing elements that I add to this theme that you'll see later. As mentioned in some of my previous videos, I have been working on blending for my gouache as well as layering, and so you see that I am doing that here as well. I feel like I've already gotten a bit rusty as I haven't painted for a bit, but then it was nice to be able to start practicing again. One difference between this painting and some of the other more recent paintings is that for the other more recent paintings, I had put some more thought into where the light sources are coming from, planned ahead a little bit in my head, and then tried to implement that as I was painting the different layers. Whereas for this painting, other than the main light source behind the tree, I didn't think too much about where some of the other light sources will be, and so the layering of the paint with darker and lighter colors for contrast to help support that glowing effect with the gouache isn't as visible in this painting. And the reason why I didn't do that so much is just because I was trying to conserve energy. I wanted this painting to be not overly taxing, especially given that I am very close to giving birth, and so I didn't want to give myself too much pressure in this painting and be sitting here for too long painting. So I know it's not my best work, but then it was still very enjoyable. And that's part of the mindset that I want going into 2025, where I don't think that every time we sit down to create or do something, we need to aim for it to be a total masterpiece. I think that it's fine for us to just enjoy the process of whatever it is that we're doing. That's something that I struggle with and I'm trying to actively work on. And so here and in the future, I'm trying to sit with the discomfort of not being or doing the best at whatever's on my hands at the moment, and that even if I'm not meeting the expectations that I have for myself in my mind, that it doesn't necessarily define my worth, my talent, or define me, which is a way that I tend to think a lot of the times, where I have to be perfect, I have to be the best in order for me to be worth anything. And so I really am trying to move away from thinking that way, and one of the areas where I can practice doing that is in my artwork, where even if it's not turning out the way that I imagine it to be in my mind, that I can still enjoy the process of painting, the process of creating, and enjoy the outcome regardless of what it looks like, and still be happy just doing art, and know that it doesn't define who I am based on the result in that moment. So moving into 2025, I'll be using my bullet journal still as a productivity tool and a creative outlet, but also as a place where I have spreads that help me to remind myself to be mindful, to be thankful, to be appreciative of each day and each moment, and to not be so hard on myself in all aspects of my life. So you'll see that reflected in the spreads that I'll show for this setup as well as in the months to come. Next page here, I'm doing a year at a glance spread where I have these little printed out calendars so that I can see the days of the entire year. This time it's different from what I did before in that I used to draw calendars that I have in my bullet journal all by hand, but I basically realized that I don't have to always do everything by hand. So this time I just printed out these tiny calendars, cut them up and glued them in. And it really sped up the process and it looks very clean. So I do think I will do this more often in some of my future spreads. Additionally, right beside, I added an Assorted method events list so that I can see some important events that are happening throughout the entire year at a high level. Additionally, the Assorted method gives me a lot of flexibility to move events and see where the progress is for various events. And so I'm quite excited to use this page, and hopefully I can get used to it because I tried once before and I didn't get quite into the habit of using it, but I do think it is a useful tool. So I'll let you know how it goes. For this next page, I'm doing a brain dump. I've always added brain dumps in my yearly setups, and I do think it's useful, but I don't think that the way that I've been setting it up has been conducive towards me using it to its full potential. Basically, what I found is that for brain dumps, I do that regularly, but I end up brain dumping sometimes on the brain dump page, but sometimes on random sticky notes, sometimes on random other spread pages, and so it's not all in one place. So I think that this year, in order to try and facilitate putting it all in one page, I'm going to try and categorize my brain dump so it's a bit more of an organized brain dump, thinking ahead into which categories I tend to brain dump the most. And so, keeping in mind that I have that set up already, I will try to write into these categories on the same page so that I have it all available on a single spread, which would really help me to just be more organized. Next, we have a goals page. And again, the goals page is something that I have been adding for my yearly setups, but once more, it is one of those spreads where I felt like I'm not getting the full use out of it. I'm not really good at organizing my goals. It's something that I'm still working on. In a sense, I feel like that should be a goal in itself. But basically, I know in my mind and on my goals list roughly what I want to achieve, but then I don't really know how to organize them so that I break it down into steps or am able to track how I'm doing. And so I just kind of keep track of goals roughly in my mind throughout the year and try to work at them while I can, which I feel like is not the most productive way of approaching goals. And so this year, I'm going to try and do something of almost like a brain dump, mind map, brainstorming session for my goals so that I really narrow down what I truly want to achieve and what is reasonable. And then once I pick my goals, I will organize the milestones and also set some deadlines for myself to remember to check in with myself to see where I'm at and reassess how I'm doing and plan again if I need to make some changes, so that I'm not just looking at my goals at random points in time when I think of it and not being so all over the place. So I hope that this method will help me with my goals this year, and if not, I will probably try some other goal setting methods and tools, and then until eventually I find one that works for me. As I'm working on this spread, I just wanted to mention that I think that one of my goals, not necessarily the most important one of course, is that I want to learn how to do more lettering, like faux calligraphy and brush lettering and that kind of thing, so that I can be more versatile in my bullet journal spreads. Right now, most of my lettering is pretty much the same, very simple, oftentimes quite messy as well, so I really hope that I can learn to do other types of lettering and make my spreads more pretty. Next, I'm setting up my future log, and I'm doing one page for each month. The difference for the upcoming year is that instead of only putting in the 6 months, I'm putting in all 12 months for the future log, even though I know that I'll only be using this bullet journal for January to June. The reason why I'm doing that for this year is because with a new baby coming, I feel like there are more things that I may need to record down further in the year, and I want to have that in one spot. And so for this bullet journal, I think that will be on these future log pages. I do think that I will need to copy it over once I set up my mid-year bullet journal, and that's okay because I think that it would serve as a reminder for things that I need to keep track of for the future as well, so I really don't mind that repetition. For for this upcoming year future log pages, I kept it very simple, leaving lots of space for each day so that I can write multiple events or reminders or other things I need to keep track of on each day. And then I only just stamped in the months. After that, I didn't really add any more decoration. I really wanted to keep the focus for these pages mostly on what I'm going to write in, and I didn't want to do too much decorative drawing or taping or stickering, which would take up space that I would need for each month. Next, we have my to check out and to try pages. These are pages that I have really enjoyed in my previous bullet journals as well. I really found it useful to have an area to list out things that I wanted to try, especially for areas like food, media, activities, for dates. So this year, because I already know which main categories are of interest for me that I want to list things under, I pre-set up those categories as each page, and then decorated them some more just to make them more visually appealing so that I consistently add to them. Especially because instead of only having 1/2 page for each category, I had 2 of them, so a full spread for each one. So I had lots of space to work with. Here you see me adding a bunch of tabs as well as washi tape borders. So tabs are something that I found that I've really liked having in my bullet journal, especially for pages such as the future log and the to check out and to try pages. I find that it helps me to easily quickly flip through those sections, and I also just really like how they look. In recent spreads, I have, other than for the cover page, mostly been using washi tape and stickers and such for my other spreads, so I'm not always painting in every single page. I think that this has been something that has been more and more fun for me as I'm learning to be more versatile with the different washi tape and stickers that I have, and it also gives me a different kind of creative outlet. At the same time, it's less time consuming in that I don't have to paint and hand draw on every page, and also gives me a chance to use up all the washi tape that I've been hoarding. Once I experiment more and figure out many more additional ways of using washi tape and stickers and such, then I think it'll give me a lot of flexibility with my spreads in terms of sometimes I want to paint, sometimes I want to use washi tape, and sometimes it'll be a combination of both. And then having all of those materials and mixed media at hand would give me a lot of freedom to set up my spreads however I want and have it look visually appealing such that I want to use it, regardless of whether I have that much time to paint or not, and regardless of how much time that I actually spend on the spread. And I think that makes it a lot easier for me to work on my bullet journal and set it up regardless of how busy I may be. Additionally, I've slowly been learning and finding that using washi tape and other pre-made materials is truly another art form and way of expression in itself. It kind of reminds me of scrapbooking or something like junk journaling, which I find to be a very therapeutic process. So all in all, I'm excited to have more materials to experiment with, and it gives me more options than just doing painting and drawing and everything from scratch. So this particular to check out and to try page, I am quite excited about. So previously I would have pages more so for date ideas, but now that I am starting a family, I have changed it to family activities. So I'll be researching some kid-friendly activities and events, and family-friendly activities and events as well. And I'm just really excited to go and try out all these things as a family of 3. Also, something new for some of my to check out pages is that previously for those pages, I would just have space for a plain old list. But then this time for 2025, I'm trying to create some charts so that I don't just have a simple list, but I will actually add additional details like where is the location, or how much does it cost, or for food, which particular item on the menu I want to try. And I think that this will be helpful as a change for my list, because for my old ones in my previous bullet journals, sometimes I found that I would have to Google whatever I listed again because I forgot where it was, or I forgot what it was about, that kind of thing. And so this will help me prevent some redundancy in my bullet journal and in the way that I approach things. So although I mentioned that I had an entire spread for each category, there were exceptions, such as for the date ideas page and the recharge page. I didn't feel like I needed as much space for each of these pages, as I think that for dates and family activities there will be some overlap. And then for recharge, it's just going to be a high-level reminder, and then in each month I will likely have some sort of recharge as well as self-care pages with more details. The chores page is something that I had in my previous bullet journal as well, but it is again one of those spreads where I felt like I didn't set it up in a way that really helped facilitate me doing the chores itself. So for this year, what I'm trying to do is do a overview list, which includes all the months, and list out the main chores that I can think of, and then I will fill it out whenever I do that chore that month. Of course, I will be doing most of those chores multiple times per month, but then I feel like doing a high-level yearly overview broken down by months will make it feel a lot more doable, and so I can track additional details of the chores per month for each month's spread, but that having this list here will help to motivate me to make sure that at least I do these chores every month, and in my mind that will feel a lot more doable and encourage me to just do the chores more often and more regularly. I've also added a period tracker here so that I can see when my period returns postpartum. And now for a flip through. This year I added a key with more symbols so that I can be more organized in terms of the status of my tasks as well as events and other things I want to keep track of. I also color-coded some categories so that I can see at a glance what each item is. This year I added a quote page as I was wrapping up my 2025 setup, where I just wanted to remind myself that just being is enough. that I don't have to prove my worth through accomplishments, through every little thing that I do. And that's this being enough concept is something that I want to carry through the entire year. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.